Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. My guest today is Tiffany O'Hearn. Tiffany is an energetic healer and 13-sign astrologer. She uses the energies of the client or group to guide her sessions to help her clients through clearing their programs, decisions, and traumas using various healing modalities, including TFT, thought field therapy tapping. Beyond aiding others, Tiffany is a podcaster. She conducts workshops and healing circles, is a public speaker, future TEDx speaker, and can often be found in nature. Nature is her haven, offering solace, beauty, and profound wisdom that fuels her spirit and helps her have a balanced mind, body, and soul. Tiffany embraces humor and wit and loves sharing smiles, laughter, love, and joyous moments with those around her. Welcome to the podcast, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all of the listeners as well. And I think this is going to be a really excellent, fun episode. And I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. I'm so looking forward to our conversation as well. So with that, can you start us off by sharing just a little bit more about you, your personal journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And, life is funny because, we have these little stepping stones. If we really look back or, pay attention, right. And kind of be intentional, you'll see that you have all of these steps that kind of lead you to exactly where you are right at this very moment. Right.
Right,
And
right.
so, growing up, I remember always just thinking the world was a little different than it had appeared. You know,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
like I remember thinking to myself as a child, I was like, well, when I'm an adult, I'll know what to do because adults, they know what to do because that's what you're told. Right.
Right,
And
right.
adults know, children don't. And then I said, no, actually, they don't know either, or they don't know at all, or I don't know what's happening. Right. And
Mhm,
so it was this whole evolution of myself, just kind of even learning to understand that, as a child. And just seeing things, like I said, just a little differently, right? And I can't necessarily say that somebody wasn't seeing it the same way. To me, it felt very different,
mhm,
than the way it was being expressed. And I definitely have been on this evolution journey, very heavy, I think, throughout my entire life and
mhm,
throughout my journey, just constantly questioning things.
mhm,
And, I had my daughter 8 years ago, and that really was a huge turning point for my life,
mhm.
because prior to conception, it was this big question for me, how do I be intentional? And I know that I can't teach anybody anything. We'll take that off the table, but I can guide and I can model and I
Mhm,
can show. And so, what do I need to change and witness within myself in order to be that guide
mhm,
for my future child,
mhm,
and a lot of that just kind of embodies this love,
mhm,
truly. And then subsequently, when she was 2, I got divorced, and that was another point for me to look at myself and ask some hard questions, because how did I end up in that marriage?
mhm.
Right? Not it had nothing to do with the other person. It hardly ever does, right?
Right,
It has to
right.
do with me. And so, what do I need to shift? What do I need to change so
Mhm.
that I don't find myself back in that space?
Yeah.
And so, since then, it really has come full circle for me, diving deep into not only myself, but the world around me. And, realizing that we are all coming from pain and wounds, you
Mhm,
know, and
mhm,
how many of us are actually expressing, our true heart, our heart center,
mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
there's so many layers. Um, you know, when we think about traumas, oftentimes, I don't know about you, but when I was younger too, and that word was kind of being thrown around, I thought, well, I wasn't in war.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I have
Yep.
no traumas. I
Right.
don't have can't be me. But
Mhm.
then you realize something fairly benign to anybody else can be so dramatic for you in your life. And
Mhm.
when we have these little traumas, and you can even take, well, first of all, just being born alone is a
Yeah.
trauma for us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so then, let's just say, your mom doesn't answer your call when you're a newborn. That starts that.
Mhm.
And it's not your mom's fault, right? That's
Right.
not an intentional thing. But in those moments, we start to make decisions. Now, as a newborn, we don't have the words for it. We only have the feeling.
Right.
And then as we start to develop our language, now we can put the words to it. But the
Mhm.
feeling doesn't change. And so fast forward 40 years, and someone's not, answering you the way that you want, and that trauma from 3 days old is resurfacing, except there's been 40 years in between. We're not thinking about that trauma.
Right.
We're thinking about, why did you do that to me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about me? Are you doing that? And so it starts this spiral, and really, it's not our fault, right? But the more that we can be curious, the more that we can be aware, and the more that we can understand that we are wounded,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when we react to life instead of respond, those are our wounds.
Mm. Hmm.
And it's up for us, if we want to live a life of joy and happiness and fulfillment, to clear those wounds. Because the more that we clear that negativity, those lower vibrating feelings, the more love can come through. And the more love that we have, first for ourselves,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
The more that it is felt throughout humanity, because love is so powerful. It's
Hmm.
so powerful. And so if there's a journey that I'm on outside of like healing and guiding others to heal and clear, it's also for them to step into their heart
Yeah.
space,
Yeah. Yeah.
and come from here.
Right. Right. Gosh, there's so much right there. Um, I would like to just clear up, like, how would you define trauma? Because I agree, like, I've never been to war. I've never been in a serious accident. I've never,
Hmm.
and sometimes we just think those things as the big T, the big trauma words. But we all have experiences that, however we perceive it, and how we generated our feelings around it, we all have these little ones that can add up and store and, layer on top of one another. So how would you describe or define trauma in
You
general?
know, yeah, and that's such a great question, because you're so right, right? We layer on these traumas, but
Mhm.
there's usually a general theme in between them. So let's just say I don't feel seen, right?
Right.
Every time now, so I don't feel seen. And I'm even going to go on a limb here and say that I don't feel seen could have even started from my ancestral DNA. So I'm coming to this world
Yep.
with it already expressed within me. Right. And I can see it. Usually we find, within your astrology chart, I mean, that's how real it is, that you can actually find the wounds that you're here
Mm.
in. Right. And so let's just say it's not feeling seen. And so then my mom doesn't come to me when I'm 3 days old and I'm crying. Okay, well, she doesn't see me. And then I'm 2 years old and the doctor gives me a shot, let's just say, and
Mhm.
I'm not ready and I'm not prepared and I don't know it. Okay, now I'm not feeling seen again.
Mhm.
Start school. Oh, it's so hard to go to school. Right. And then our teacher says, just sit down. Oh, okay. Now we're layering on not feeling seen. We become a
Mhm.
teenager. Most teenage lives are not feeling seen,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right? Then we become an adult. We get into relationships and our partner is not seeing us. They're not seeing us. And I have to say gently, it has nothing to do with anyone else.
Right.
You know, it's just that every time you get that feeling, it's bringing up
Mhm.
that trauma, right? And so, and what happens is whenever we have, let's say this unseen, when
Mhm.
we're in that emotion, we're
Mhm.
going to continue to look for things that match what we're vibrating, which is feeling unseen.
Right.
So I didn't spell my name right, not feeling seen again, right? And so now I'm looking for the ways that I'm not being seen,
Mhm.
because in our subconscious, our ego mind, it's supposed to make us feel better. It, in fact, does not,
Right.
right? And so when we're in this wheel, in this fear, right, of negative vibrating energies, right, we have our chi, our energy that flows through us. And
Mhm.
every time we experience a trauma, we get a little shunt in our energy,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so now I'm like, oh, no, you just did that. Dunk. And now pretty soon my energy is not really even flowing at all.
Right.
And I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm vibrating, I'm not seen, right?
Mhm.
And so for us to really influence this, because we do have the power over this,
Mhm.
we do have choice over all of this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's simply to say, okay, I hear you, Tiffany, you don't feel seen, but that's ours. Right. And come from a place in a seat of compassion, not only for yourself, but for the other person, because it doesn't have anything to do with them. It's
Mhm.
our wounds,
Yeah.
And so traumas, you could even, when you're 4 years old, you drop a brick on your toe, trauma, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about this too, right? Like, let's just say, Peggy, you're a child, you're 2 years old, maybe you're 3, whatever. And you and your parent, you get hit, your
Hmm.
parents get into a car accident and it's not that bad, but to you, it's scary. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I don't know what just happened, right? And you
Mhm.
look out your little window and see it's a red car. You've decided red cars are bad, or red cars hit you, red
Mhm.
cars hurt. Red could even be the trauma. It might
Mhm.
not even be car because you decided. And then let's say, you're in a grocery store and the car next to you is red and they bump your door. Oh, red cars are bad. Red cars are bad. And
Mhm.
you'll hold this throughout. So every time you're seeing a red car that matches that experience, your body's contracting. And then so I'm like, hey, Peggy, do you want to get dinner? No, I don't want to get dinner. And you don't know why you're reacting that way
Mhm.
because you're already in that trauma.
Right.
You're in that experience.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we all have traumas. We
Mhm.
all have wounds. That's a
Mhm.
fact. But
Mhm.
we don't have to be the victim in them.
Right.
And that's the difference,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You talk a lot about the energy, that flows or gets stuck or
Mm-hmm.
stagnant. Like, if the listeners are kind of unfamiliar with this, can you kind of explain that? Because sometimes people are like, ooh, that's a little like, ooh, I don't know about that, but it is true. And there's so many things, but start off with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And that's such a great question. And thank you for bringing that up too. Because, right. Because if we don't know, or if we don't, fully have embodied or embraced this idea, it can be quite foreign.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, in a physical world, everything is energetic. Everything is energy. There isn't
Mhm.
a thing around you that's not energy.
Right.
And, and, right. I have a crystal in front of me, energy. These are
Mhm.
powerful with energy, right?
Yeah.
We are energy too. And so if you think about when you feel bad, that's because your energies are lower vibrating.
Mhm.
When you feel good, you're vibrating it higher, right? You're feeling great. You're feeling good. You're feeling love. You're feeling joy. You're feeling happiness,
Mhm.
right? And then if something interferes with that, think about that waterfall again. And we're just clogging up little logs throughout our
Mhm.
day
Mhm.
until we get to the end of the day and it's like, I don't know what happened. I was feeling so good,
Yeah.
you know? But
Yeah.
in order to feel good a lot, or even just a little more than you're feeling today, is
Mhm.
to kind of be curious about these little programs, about these little traumas, right?
Mhm.
But so we are energetic. And, our astrology, everything is energy. The planets, the sun, the stars, the trees, everything is energy. And
Mhm.
we can influence our energies. I mean, if you've never fully embraced it, I invite you to feel how powerful the energies of nature are. When you're feeling bad, go outside.
Yeah.
Truly just go outside, go find a beautiful flower to stare at, go put your back up against a tree, put your hand in some dirt,
Mhm.
stomp up and down. I mean, you'll start to really notice and see, even the birds tweeting can
Yeah.
have a significant impact on our well-being,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the most powerful energy in the universe is our thoughts.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so we can attract what it is that we want.
Mhm.
More often, we attract what we don't want because that's how we're vibrating,
Mhm.
right? So when I say what we don't want, oh, I don't want, the cookout to be canceled later because of the rain.
Right.
I don't want to be around negative people. In effect, what your subconscious is hearing is, oh, it's great if it rains later. Oh, I want to be around negative people. And again, when we are energies, it's like a magnet. What are you a match for? What
Mhm.
you vibrate, you become a match for.
Mhm.
And for instance, I'm holding a group workshop on this Saturday, and the workshop is about navigating narcissism. And so if you've had narcissistic people in your life currently and or past, then gently I'm suggesting that you have the energies that are attracting narcissistic people.
Mhm.
And so instead of saying, well, you're bad and you're wrong and that's not fair, we say, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can transmute these energies within you that are attracting. So if we think about energy, our dense energy, our anger, right? Or again, the red car, it
Right.
creates this very dense energy.
Mhm.
And when we use energy healing, what we do is we shift our subconscious first and foremost. But we also take that dense ball of energy and sort of helps to transmute it so it's not dense anymore. And
Mhm.
now it's just
Yeah.
particles.
Mhm.
and they're not attracting. So narcissistic people can come into our life, but we're not even affected by them, and they're not going to affect us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you're like, wow, I was in a good mood today and everyone else is in a bad mood, you might want to say, hey, what am I attracting out of all of this?
Right.
Because if you believe at every situation, wherever you are right now is exactly the place that you were meant to be
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
until you decide otherwise.
Right. And you have that power of choice
We do.
and all that energy. And I'm getting that vision of just looking at yourself in the mirror, right? Like, because it's all reflected. We're just reflecting our inner stuff, our
Mm-hmm.
energy from our insides, our thoughts. We're just projecting those outward. And if we can take a look and go, okay, what's on the inside of that? What's behind that mirror? And then we can decide to choose and do something different, to take that dense ball and just break it up so that it's just particles, like you said. And then
That
and it doesn't attract anything. Like, and I think about it, as like food. If I'm like, oh, I have a sweet tooth, and I'm just like that. But we can disengage from that. We don't have to let that draw us in. And we can actually break it up to where it's like, we're not attracted to that anymore.
That's so right. And that's such a fun example too, right? And that's other key thing that you just kind of mentioned too. I have a sweet tooth. Well, you're saying that becomes a program within
Yep.
you,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so now you're like, well, I have a sweet tooth. Well,
Yep.
I'm going to eat this. I have a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
Well, and our words are so important. Our subconscious takes things very literal. And
Mhm.
so when we start to label people or label our children, oh, they're going to be a doctor, they're going to be a doctor, they're going to be a doctor. When the child isn't a doctor, there's a whole lot of wounding there
Mhm.
because everyone has suggested, well, this person is going to be this one thing. And their value now is determined by
Mhm.
that one thing,
Yeah.
and words are so important,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I have a sweet tooth, currently, I have a sweet tooth, or
Mhm.
right in this moment, it would be really nice if I had something sweet.
Right.
That takes the power out of that because now you're going from, I need something sweet because I have a sweet tooth to, if I have it, that's great. If I don't, that's okay too. And just you take the power out of that
Yeah.
because that's what it is. We need to put truly, it's to put space between these thoughts.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can come to energy healing and we can remove these traumas and triggers. I do it with clients all the time to
Mhm.
help change and shift their lives. But if that's not something that you're inclined to do or want to do in this juncture, that's okay.
Yeah.
There are a few things that you can do. And that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
And the number one is to put space between your thoughts.
Mhm.
It's super easy. It's not that simple though. And I want to honor that. All of this is very easy stuff that we're talking about,
Mhm.
but it's not that simple because we have to work to create it. We have to make it a habit, a
Yeah.
routine, and I was just talking about this the other day over a campfire. Like, when I decided, so often we do things and say things and hear things that don't fully align with us until we choose something different. And so I would watch TV and think it was okay to just like make fun of, or not make fun of, but like, oh, I don't like that shirt. That's stupid on them. Or let's just say, right.
Mhm.
And so in order for me to stop that, because I didn't like that side of myself, was
Mhm.
to stop it.
Yeah.
And so, okay, if it comes into my mind, into my thoughts, I'm going to just honor it. Oh, Tiff, it's okay. It's okay. We'll just have compassion. It's not a big deal. So you're still going to think them, but they're
Mhm.
not coming out of your mouth. And pretty soon you stop altogether thinking them. Right. And it can take some time again with the sweet tooth, trying
Mhm.
to deprogram yourself to, I have a sweet tooth, to, I just want something sweet right in this very moment. And it's okay if I don't get it.
Mhm.
It takes a little work,
Right.
but you can do these things to put that space between these thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And so having compassion for what it is you don't know, I think is truly paramount,
Mhm.
because you also have compassion for yourself first and foremost,
Yeah.
right? If I don't know why you want something sweet right now, was your day hard, right? Because that's really what it is. There's
Yeah.
just some dopamine that I'm missing,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, how can I get that elsewhere? Well, maybe I'll hold my crystal. Maybe I'll sing. Maybe I'll dance. Nature for me is always where I go.
Yep.
Just go outside and that
Yeah.
will dramatically influence the thoughts, right?
Mhm.
But you can also choose on the ready. Like this is something I do with my daughter. This is something I do too. Take a place in your mind. You'd have never had to be there. You don't have to ever have been there, but that create a happy place that
Mhm.
you can return to
Mhm.
whenever you choose, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, mine is, in a forest, in front of a field, with water flowing right nearby, and I'm in my hammock.
Yeah.
I go there when I feel bad because
Mhm.
it makes me feel good,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Because then it helps to put this space between my thoughts. And then you revisit it and go, that's funny. It doesn't even bother me now. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But we are the creators of our life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the less that we invite that, the more that we invite the very negative vibrating feeling of victimhood.
Yeah. 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 Because if, we're not seeking out the good, the bad stuff or the negative energy is just gonna come rushing in, and it likes to attach it to us. So we don't have to let it. But those happy places, like you said, we don't even have to go there. We don't even literally, we don't have to have been there. But what is a peaceful place? I feel like it's also just interrupting the pattern, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
putting that space between your thoughts. You're kind of interrupting the dialogue, you're interrupting the scenery, just anything to just go, oh, just a minute,
Yep.
right? And just
Yep.
pause.
Yeah. I mean, even breathing is a very simple thing, but thinking about breathing right from your belly button,
Mhm.
4 or 5 very intentional breaths. Because
Mhm.
what happens is our thoughts are focused in the past and in the future.
Yes.
And in order to take our attention out of our thoughts, we need to focus on the now.
Mhm.
And then breathing does that if we're
Mhm.
being intentional.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Staring at something breaks up our thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Just stopping and saying, I'm going to find something beautiful right now to look at. Oh, I have a plant right there. I'll stare at my plant, right? I tend to attract to nature myself,
Mhm.
because it is
Yep.
very beautiful.
Yes.
You can take pictures on your phone. You know what I mean? Like it's really just creating joy in your
Mhm.
life and
Mhm.
having that on the ready.
I know that you talked about being TFT and you use some of those modalities. I'm pretty sure that some people don't know what that is. Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we're talking about is creating space.
Mhm.
But what we're not doing in that moment is removing the trauma, right?
Mhm.
And so space is very important. I don't, minimize that at all. But when we look and say, okay, red car, I want to stop being affected by red car, what do I do? Well, that's where we use energy healing. And so what happens is you have it already in your subconscious. And in order for us to clear or, clear that trauma
Mhm.
is to know exactly what the trauma is for you, right? So you say, okay, so Peggy, tell me about the red car hit us. Okay, tell me more. Well, I don't really remember. Well, what was the feeling? And I gently start to trigger you
Mhm.
back to that moment. How old were you? Well, I was 2. And if you think that you can't have triggers, subconscious memories from when you were 2, you can. I've seen it with my clients. We've gotten to past life stuff. I mean, it's pretty wild when you start to
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah.
And it's very intentional triggering you.
Mhm.
It's very gentle in doing it as well because everyone, every client of mine leaves feeling better. And you
Mhm.
won't leave unless you feel better.
Yeah.
Literally, while people will be crying. And as we're going through the TFT, they're coming out of their tears and smiling, literally within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we keep all these traumas in our energetic body. We keep them in our organs.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it stores this memory. It stores these feelings. Okay. So we get to the red car and you say, well, the red car hit me and it was very scary and maybe there was yelling,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. So the yelling was actually more scary than the car being hit, but we didn't know that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're at yelling is scary. That's your program. So whenever anybody has yelled around you or to you,
Mhm.
you return to that 2-year-old self. And
Mhm.
so now we have the onion, right? We could just clear red car, very helpful. We
Yeah.
could clear car seat if you were in a car, very helpful. We could clear a couple of those things, but the onion, the middle of that onion is the yelling. So we take that and we gently shift our subconscious through that, through this new program, right? Yelling is scary. I want to get over yelling is scary. I can get over yelling is scary. I am over yelling is scary. And we have these specific points.
Mhm.
So it's very gentle. We're not just going, Peggy, no more, no more, forget about it. It's done.
Yeah.
Right. We have to get it out of our energetic body. We have to take that density and disperse it and transmute
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And done with, thought field therapy and some of the other, modalities that I've learned throughout my
Mhm.
healing journey, and that I can bridge together
Right.
to have tremendous results. And I
Mhm.
know they're so tremendous for the sheer fact that I have spent hours and continue to healing and clearing myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, we have that red card, the yelling, right? And so we go through and we tap these points because every point, all the 15 points are associated with an organ, and we release it from the organs. We release that density. And
Mhm.
by the time you're done, and this is what most of my clients say is, I don't feel anything. Got it. I don't want you to feel anything about it. No trigger,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
just flat. Oh, it doesn't do anything to me.
Mhm.
Red car, yelling people, yelling people. And then after the session, Peggy, let's just say you go home and someone's at your door. They, there's confusion, whatever, and they start raising their voice.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not upset. you know and it gets that way where you're like, I used to react and now I
Yeah.
don't, and the
Yeah.
power and control you feel over yourself is insurmountable.
Right.
To know that now you have this peace within yourself.
Yeah.
Now, when we work on things like, let's say with grief, like somebody passing, right?
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
we clear and heal the wounds of somebody passing, because I feel as though, what I know is that when we have a difficult time with somebody leaving our life, it's
Mhm.
because we have wounds with them,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, in order for us to have peace, we need to clear those wounds.
Yeah.
They left me too soon. Perfect. Let's start there. So that you don't feel this polarization all the time. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
they're gone. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then what happens is we don't remove the feeling.
Mm.
So it's the anniversary of, whomever. Oh, I
Yeah.
just, love you. I do, I wish you were here. It is so great. And you have this very natural expression of this emotion, of this
Mhm.
sadness.
Yeah.
And then when the sadness is over and you cry your tears and you go, all right. And then you move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's simply it. Moving on. You,
Right.
you feel it as you should. You cry if you need to, right? As long as you're expressing your emotions appropriately and getting
Mhm.
them up,
Yep.
and then you move on. And that thickness, that your chi is still flowing within it
Mhm. Mhm.
because you're honoring it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm super sad right in this moment. Oh my goodness, it's been 12 years.
Right.
It's been 12
Right.
years since my father passed away.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I'm celebrating him. And then the tears. But then after that, it's like, okay, what's next? Right?
Yep.
That's how it should be for us, is that we react to life, or
Yeah.
excuse me, respond to life
Right.
instead of
Right.
reacting.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Does
good.
that help to kind of clear that up?
Yes, it does. And there's so much more. We can go on and on. But if somebody wants to find out more about you, find out, how to learn more about what you're doing, or even potentially be a client, where can they find out more about you?
Sure. Yeah. So I am all over social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's Heart in Soul Healing. So Heart in IN. I have a website there
Mhm.
where I have all my group workshops that I'm doing. Like I said, I'm doing
Mhm.
one this Saturday for navigating narcissism. Attracting financial abundance is a very popular one
Mhm.
that I do, and I intend to do it again. And that one is all about money
Yeah.
and our wounds with money, because we all have them,
Oh, yeah.
right?
I have lots
And
of thoughts about those things too.
yes, yes. And most of our wounds with money comes, the very first programs we get they're generally from our parents. However, our parents thought about money,
Mhm.
right? Oh, too much. We can't buy that. Too expensive, right?
Right. Right.
These become your programs throughout your life. And so if we're not in the energy of, because what is money but energy?
Right.
So if we're not open to receiving energy, just as much as we're not open to receiving love, if we're not open to receiving positive vibrating energies, we simply won't. I'm doing these group healing workshops because,
Mhm.
one, I can reach more people,
Yeah.
which is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Second, right, it's a lower cost
Right.
than having a one-on-one session. So there's, right?
Yep.
But if this is your first time, I would love for you to experience energy healing, because it will change your life. It's a
Yeah.
bold statement. I make it. Join me and you'll see why.
Oh, yes.
The other part of that is when you have a group focusing on the same thing, it amplifies the results of it. because
Mm,
now you have, instead of one person thinking about it, because our thoughts are powerful, now you have 12, 15, 25 people thinking about it.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that really helps the energetics of it all. But I also do one-on-one healing sessions, and I can do those. I do those locally. I have a place that a healing center. I do them locally in Connecticut, and then I also do them via Zoom, right? And so, um, I have my own podcast that, you can hear all the wisdom, and I'll have
Mhm.
guests on and things like that too. And that's called The Alchemy of Abundance, and that's on Gnostic TV. So there's a lot of ways to kind of orbit within my solar system if you so
Awesome.
choose.
Yes.
Because for me, it's all about just coming from a place of love and learning and feeling about how to connect deeper to that.
Right. Right. And all of this is just trying to heal our thoughts and create a better energy because, like you said earlier, our thoughts are, the top part of our energy. And so if we can change some of those things, we change a lot in ourselves. So as we wrap up today, is there one thought or quote you would like to leave the listeners with?
Sure. So this is one that comes to mind. I believe it was Napoleon Hill, but it's, you can have, be, and do anything you want to be. What stops you is your thoughts.
Yes.
I mean, truly, right? You may think that you want something, but if we get into your subconscious, you actually don't. And it's your ego that's trying to keep you safe from it,
Mm,
right? Oh,
yep.
I want a new car. And then I test you, like, because I use energy testing.
Yep.
I get into your energies, and then I show, like, actually, that's not true. For you, it's not that it's not
Right.
true in the global scheme. It's
Right.
not
Right.
true for you in this moment. So as much as you think that you want a new car, you're actually rejecting a new car. You're
Mm,
rejecting all the circumstances in the way that the universe will try to influence and provide you this new car. You're energetically blocking it. And so that can happen throughout our lives where we are actually blocking it unintentionally. And so if you ask yourself, can I do that? You can. Can I be that? You can.
mhm.
Can I have that? You can. And if you don't have any of those things, then it's between the ears,
Yes.
truly. And I say that with love and compassion because we
Oh,
don't know what we know until we know it.
right. Right. Oh, this has been awesome, Tiffany. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you and this beautiful platform, and the listeners, and just be a little bit better than yesterday. If you can pause in your thoughts one time today, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm celebrating you.
Very good. Very well said. Thank you again.
Thank you.